Hello, good evening. We are live again for our weekly live stream. It is 8:01 on the 19th of June, 2026. And joining me here are Juliet English and Michelle and Amy. And we've got Kat in the background doing all our wonderful technical stuff. We really couldn't do this without her. So we'll just acknowledge her one more time. So going quickly through what's happened this week, or what is continuing to happen, we're going to start with the fundraiser for the judicial review. Michelle, would you like to say something about that, because you're the one with the knowledge?
Absolutely. Now, first of all, I had planned on being able to have a nice update for all of you this week, because we were supposed to get the substantive responses from the governments on Tuesday. However, both asked for some more time for various different reasons, but so that we can get a proper substantive response. So it'll now be a few more weeks before we can give you an update on that. But we do still keep needing to push this number up, because unfortunately legal challenges are not cheap. The reality is, if we have to go to court, there's lots of different stages that you have to do. Each stage adds additional costs throughout. Everyone can read the letter of claim themselves to see exactly what we are seeking and exactly what we're challenging. So we're challenging the Primary Act, the Children's Wellbeing and Schools Act, under Article 8, Right to Family Life, Article 2 of Protocol 1, Right to Education, and Article 14, Protection Against Discrimination. We're at the very early stages. These claims are not quick. They're also, unfortunately, not cheap. Thank you to everyone who has donated so far. It was amazing when we saw it had gone over that 30,000. That was a big relief, because it meant we could get to the next stage, because there's a big legal team in the background. So there's lots of people working on this in the background. So now we need it to sort of hit that 50,000, so that when we get these letters back, because obviously we know we've got a couple more weeks now to raise some more money. When we get these letters back, obviously we want to be in a position to be able to react to them quite quickly. So if you can, keep donating. We've also got a couple of other ideas going on. So please share. If you've got a spare £5, stick it in. But we're also planning on the 18th of July, so mark it in your diaries, to try and do a sort of national fundraising event, with people doing little local bake sales, their own little fundraisers, but also being supported by a larger online event. We're hoping to be able to announce properly next week the details, because it's still in that point of us sort of organising it. And again, we've also got the other bits of, if you want to do community events, and there's like the 50-50 bit of, you raise half for your own charity and then half to put into the Ground Justice. I know Rachel, Send Shropshire Allies, is still supporting people to set them all up. So yeah, please keep sharing, please keep donating, and it'd be lovely to see that number creep up. And particularly when we get those letters back from the governments, I'd be over the moon if the figure was nearer the 50,000 mark, because then it means that we are in the position to act on whatever the respective governments come back with.
And the reason you said government, because that's Wales and England.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And just to be clear, a lot of people are giving of their professional time to this. They're not all getting paid. This isn't money that's paying a whole team of solicitors so that they get lots of money. It's not like that at all. This is the money for the actual court bits of it, and there's a lot going on in the background where a lot of professionals have been extremely generous with their time. So they're giving their professional time, we're giving our money, and we're joining together as a team to make sure that this judicial review can go ahead. So thank you so much for your generosity so far. If you can spare the cut, even if it's just the cost of a cup of coffee, chuck a few coppers our way, and we can make sure that it goes to the right place.
And I'm just reading the comments. They're really good and encouraging to read them. And how many people are wanting this action, because it is actually could be a landmark thing, and it could make a huge difference. So do go and read the comments as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Kat, what's next? Okay, so we there is the statutory guidance for information sharing duty. They're sort of consulting on this. They're seeking views on their draft statutory guidance, and part of that is they've got some webinars. Now, they've not been announced very well, I don't think, because I have to say I looked at them today and went, why didn't I know about that? So, and I'm not the only one, but there are these consultation webinars. So we'll put a link below where you can go and check out when these are, but they are next week. They've got 3, 2 on one day and 1 on another day. So they've got a morning one, an afternoon one, and then one the next day. If you can get along to one of those, we've seen the slides from them, and basically it explains how loose the criteria will be for information sharing. It's basically, if you are one of the people who has some form of child safeguarding duty, you could be the police, you could be social services, etc., etc. If you are one of those people, you can share information with another body like that, because you think it's in the child's best interest as far as welfare is concerned, not because the child's in danger or anything like that. So this is where we've had this massive change with the legislation, isn't it, Michelle, where they've sort of changed the goalposts, if you will, for sharing. Before this, it has been, child at risk, share the data, get something done. Now we've got this best interest thing and the interest of the child's welfare, and that's where it's changing. So go get yourself really informed in the webinar of where the government are coming from with this, so that we know where the limits of it are. Michelle?
Yeah, the other bit, and I hope people do respond to the consultation, the thing that comes through loud and clear is consent. Forget it. It doesn't matter. Because it's not even best interest. It's if they think it promotes welfare.
The welfare promotes,
but it's also worse, because it's not just about information sharing of the child. They can attach information that is associated with the child. So if you as a parent or an associated adult to the child may be known to other services, if they believe that is relevant, they can attach that information. So your files won't be kept separate. And the problem is, the information can be shared further and further, and there is no requirement for consent. In fact, if you go to these webinars, you'll see they explicitly, and we did emphasize this earlier up, as it was just a bill, unfortunately it's now an act, that the duty of confidence no longer exists. If they're sharing under this rule, under this information sharing duty, they do not have to protect confidence. And it seems the least likely person to know what's going on with the information will be the parent. So when you look at the slides, it lists more organizations than I had realized that information would be being shared across. It doesn't seem to have just being relevant to safeguarding. It does seem to be just if people decide it will be useful for them for a public task to do their duties to share, that they can share it. But if to share information with the parent, they need to follow the Data Protection Act, and they need to, so it's actually going to be a higher threshold for them to share the information with the parent than it is to share it wider. So it's really, really important that people engage with this. I know they're aiming primarily towards professionals filling this in, but it is going to impact everyone. So if you know people who are within the criteria, get them filling in this consultation, and fill it in yourselves from your own perspective, because it is going to mean children don't have any privacy. But worse than that, it's adding tracking profile, because they've allowed it so that if they think that's relevant, so their elder sibling may now be linked directly on something that may not be relevant, which then that gets shared further and further. And I know certainly I've seen many cases where the records are incorrect, and getting them corrected just barely ever happens. Sometimes you can get a statement attached to it saying this is disputed, but they don't necessarily both get read. And if it's already been forwarded on, although you get that dispute attached to the record that is the primary record, that doesn't necessarily then go to all the people who've already received that wrong information. So it's really, really concerning at the moment that there are a lack of safeguards. So if people raise that, that's the thing. It's like, where are the safeguards? How are we ensuring that if there is false information, it gets corrected? It doesn't just keep getting amplified. And how do we stop profiling?
So in summary, there are 4 issues. The first one is that we've got this unique identifier, so it makes it much more easy to attach things. But also, if we know children, don't we, Michelle, who have more than one NHS number, so that's going to lead to confusion and the wrong thing. That the information is shared just because they think that they ought to, not because there's an incident or a thought that the child will be in danger. So it can be shared on the basis of prejudice, basically, which is what we were always saying. It gets shared on the basis of prejudice. Then the third thing, they're allowed to add arms and legs in there because it includes information about individuals connected to a child, both adults and peers. So they are allowed to say, oh, he's got this mate called Johnny, and Johnny's dad is in prison, or something like that. So you can have all sorts of irrelevant stuff attached to your child's record. And then the fourth thing is there's no right to go and inspect the record that is held on your child, or the right to correct it. So there is no facility in this entire data sharing stuff where you can police the data that is kept on your child. So for accuracy or any of the other things, like Michelle says, getting it corrected is going to be near on impossible. So and we already know, Michelle and I have already dealt many times with individuals whose social service records are incredibly inaccurate and of course damage because they have been inaccurate and not been corrected based on somebody's opinion or prejudice.
Just want to raise one thing. This particular consultation has nothing to do with the unique identifier. It mentions the unique identifier will be becoming later, which probably this will be the bit where all the organizations then have all the data, and then it almost goes, oh, well, we needed a number to link it all. So this particular bit, they aim to have this in place by September, whereas the unique identifier, they're aiming for like the year afterwards. But this specific one, although we know that's the pathway, it doesn't actually have the unique identifier in it, but we know it's part of the build-up.
Yeah, it's mentioned in here because the pilot, we're using the single unique identifier. So the multi-agency information sharing program, it's got that single unique identifier as an element of it. So it's just mentioned in passing because that is a thing that's also coming in to make it easier. So marvelous. Okay, let's move on. Go to the webinars. That's what we're saying, if you can. Oh, right. Okay. So we've had a pre-announcement. So it's not started yet, but we've had a pre-announcement a week ago from the DFE that there will be a consultation on EOTAS. So for those of you who don't know what EOTAS is, it's education other than at school, more accurately referred to as education other than in school, because that's what it says in the legislation. Michelle is constantly reminding me to use the right term. Thank you, Michelle, for keeping me straight. Now, EOTAS or EOTAS, that is where your child cannot attend school, often for a medical reason, anxiety, all of those kinds of things. And the local authority has a duty to provide an education that isn't school, but still has a duty to provide an education. It's very difficult to get for your child. Your child has to be failed on multiple fronts before you end up getting it. And a lot of you out there who are home educating because the system failed you should have received EOTAS. This is where I'm coming from on this. So a lot of you out there who didn't want to be home educating in the first place, you may be very happy with it now, but you start, or you'll know people who this would have been the solution for their child and it was not offered. Bear in mind, the government is all about saving money, and they're all about creating one-size education that fits nobody as well. So they're aiming all of this, remember at the back of your head, they're aiming all of this will be to reduce the tiny amount of EOTAS provision we already have to almost nothing. And again, this is a human rights issue. This is a child rights issue. This is a child's right to education. We are supposed to have education free at the point of delivery, paid for by the public purse. If your child can't go to the one size school, then there must be another provision available to you. So keep an eye out for this. Please engage with it if you can. You might be a home educator who, if this provision was available to you, you would make that point, because they want to reduce the number of home educators. And if we make the point that if they made the EOTAS more available, there would be less home educators. Whether that would hold true for your particular family or not, it is a point to make in the consultation. Anybody want to add anything else? Everybody's looking blank. Oh, we're all so tired. It's Friday night. Right. So, what's this? Is this questions linked to it? Oh, this is. Oh, yes. So this is Fiona's. Fiona's done a thing on it. She's done an article on it. So it's well worth going over to there and having a quick check out of what Fiona has to say about it. Get yourself ready and keep an eye out. And we will be announcing on here when that consultation is published. Thank you. Oh, the Isle of Wight. Yes. We've had a load of news reports recently, haven't we? Ladies that have said, oh my goodness me, there are so many home educators in our area. It's terrible. It's doubled, it's trebled, it's whatever. The Isle of Wight actually has 4.1% of their school-age children are home educated. It's quite an outlier in the grand scheme of things. In most areas it's about 1.4%. Has anybody got anything to say about that?
I do. That's a 2025 figure, and on our preparation for tonight, I had a quick look at the amount of home educated people is 809 for 2026, and the population of the school children is 16,000. So that works out at 5%.
Oh. So yeah, but I mean, the Isle of Wight does attract certain types of people that want a more alternative, old-fashioned lifestyle, doesn't it? So there's a lovely map here. Actually, it shows you that most of the country it's between about 1% and 2%. Like I say, the rough average is about 1.4, 1.5% across the country. But we've got the sort of southwest of England is a darker blue there, which means that it's got a higher rate. Can't see the key anymore, which means it's got a higher rate. There you go. So 2 to 3% there, and then the Isle of Wight at the bottom is that purple bit. The blue bit at the bottom, that's East Sussex, by the way, and then you've got Norfolk as well. But traditionally, those areas have always had higher rates, really. That's really not surprising at all. What's interesting is that Leicester, which used to be the one that flew the flag for home education, now is just the average, the same as the rest of the country. So, you know, when I started home educating, well, around about the year 2000, the average was about 0.4% of the school age population. Now it's 1.4%. So there we go. So yeah. There we go. Blackpool's got a high percentage. Blackpool has a high Gypsy Roma traveller population. A lot of those home education figures come from that population. Schooling is tricky in Blackpool, to put it mildly. A very, very unique population in Blackpool. But yeah, just worth pointing out that it's just interesting, very interesting. And, you know, long may it continue, in my opinion, as long as people are happy. Okay, where are we up to now? What's next? Anybody want to talk about questions?
I'm just having a look at them.
Yeah, it's the usual guff, really. You know.
Yeah, but it is important actually that the MPs and so on keep questioning, and we keep these things at the forefront of discussion and highlight some of the negatives of the Act. that, because, you know, as we've seen, even we are going to talk about the social media things shortly, but many people were not even aware that this was thrown into the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act at the 11th hour. And they think it's still something they can fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so we do need to raise awareness that so people are aware of actually what is happening behind the scenes, or not so behind the scenes, but what's slipping right under our noses without us noticing.
Have you noticed at the bottom of Olivia's response there, it says, we have assessed that the measures will result in new burdens for local authorities. Snigger. We are conducting a full new burdens assessment. Would that be some of the cost impact assessment that we all were shouting about, Michelle, maybe, when we were going, have you figured out how much this is going to cost?
Yeah, but no, I think we should, I think people, if your MP is not Labour, I think you should be asking your MP to really drill down why they took measures before understanding how much of the public purse is going to be being used. Because obviously they've put this into the law, and that costs taxpayer money. Now they keep saying they've not got enough money for defence. They've not got enough money for send. They've not got enough money to repair the schools. So why are they then creating something that could be really expensive when that money could go to all these places we already know there's holes? So if your MP isn't Labour, get them asking questions about exactly how much money, and then compare it to something you care about in your area. So if you've got a school that has leaky roofs, it's like, well, could that money have been used for that? Because we know there are children in that building who need to be safe. So get that conversation going, because it will help all of us, and it'll improve education for all the children.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, what's next? Where are we up to? Oh, okay. Yes, that's fine. So yes. So there's two aspects. So we've got this announcement from Keir Starmer that he's banning social media, and we've talked before in this space about how their definition of social media includes things like YouTube. Now, I know my children, when they were home educated, learned loads of things from YouTube. I mean, where's the first place you go if you need to fix the washing machine? I had to look up how to which of the numbers on the thermostat on my fridge was the high one or the low one the other day. Guess where I went? I went to YouTube. But they want to ban all of that useful stuff because of it's just being swept up in this whole let's ban social media. I don't think I could even compare YouTube to TikTok, and YouTube, of all the platforms, YouTube are the one that promoted a child friendly platform themselves. So it's all very, very odd. And like Simon Squibb brought out a video, our friend Simon Squibb brought out a video a couple of days ago where he's absolutely furious about this social media ban. And he said that that it was diabolical, and they've had all this opportunity to get the social media companies to make their social media safer, but they've chosen not to do that, and instead they are children will be given back their childhoods thanks to government action. That sends a chill down my spine. I don't know about anybody else, but just like really.
The biggest misconception about this is that people are assuming that their terminology of what social media is the same as what the government have already legally defined it. They have defined it as a user-to-user platform with a search engine. With that definition, even the Blue Peter website comes under scope. So we are still waiting for a full list. There's a list here, but the actual list after consulting has not yet been fully published. So we're just waiting for the who, then the how. And the biggest issue that people don't seem to know is just how many mistakes they already make with age. Imagine you were an adult and you are trying to work And because you cannot prove you are over the age of 16, you have lost your right to the internet.
Yeah.
How
Yes.
devastating that would be for you, and how financially crippling.
Well, there's in the comments, we've got a comment about it not being about safe social media, but it's about digital ID for adults. And this is true because it would, in order to access, you would have to provide your digital ID to prove your age. So it's not just something about children. It's going to affect everybody. And some people might think, well, that's okay. I'm just going to prove my ID. I have to prove my ID at the supermarket when I buy a drink and so on. But it's this intrusion into our sort of family life. And the thing that bothers me a little bit as a parent who's always been fairly responsible about how much they were exposed to and how much time they spent on screens, and limiting use of social media until they were old enough. It bothers me because part of the reason this is seen as being necessary is because some parents do not take that responsibility for their children's use of social media responsibly. And I know that's going to be cause for argument for some people, but we as adults, you have to be actively engaged with your children, and you have to know what they're doing, what they're exposed to. And partly it's, I think, because this doesn't happen in a lot of families, that then the government says, right, we're going to sort this problem out. And that's the wrong place for it to happen. It needs to happen within the family.
It's going to be a bit like having a blanket ban on drinking and then letting children drink once they get to the age of 18. I mean, they're not going to have the tools to deal with it. Why are we not giving them the tools of safe social media, etc.? But linked to this is the ban on phones in schools. Now, this has really got my goat this week, because in my day job, I support families who have children with special educational needs and disabilities. So I'm always in school. I was in school this morning. I will be in school next Monday. It happens all the time. And one of my local schools has already banned phones. And I've had a long conversation with Michelle this week, because what they've done is they haven't just banned phones and social media on the property. They have banned any kind of electronic equipment and ear defenders. So they have taken away all the reasonable adjustments for those children in school, swept them all up, just like they're sweeping YouTube up with the social media ban. They've swept up, I've got a child that needs to have noise cancelling headphones and very low level music played into her ears in order that she can cope with the school day. And then she copes really well and her academic achievements great. But she's been told she's no longer allowed to wear noise cancelling headphones. She's not allowed to use an MP3 player to play herself any music. She's not allowed to use earbuds. She's only allowed to use ear loops, and she's not allowed to use ear defenders. She's not the only one. We're coming across this more and more, almost like they're just removing all those adjustments that those children have discovered that make them able to cope with life. One of the adjustments that some of our home educated children have is that they socialize through the medium of social media. So they might play Minecraft, for example. That's going to be banned, isn't it? That counts as social media with interaction. So, all of this stuff is going to go. And that's where a lot of our kids, when they were little, learned social media etiquette. They learned etiquette with people online. They learned how to keep themselves safe, etc., etc. And they're removing all of that. It's an absolute disaster. It's the wrong approach, in my opinion. Anybody else got anything they want to say about it?
Yeah, I have said from the very beginning that they should have mandated a family shield, a filter to filter out adult material from the beginning. There are only a couple of internet service providers that offer this service, and some of them charge an extortionate amount of money for it. However, if it was mandated and you had to prove your identity to get the X-rated stuff, it would be much, much fairer, and it would save people from silly mistakes like the one I shared with you earlier, Alison, about the teacher who Googled a grandfather clock, only she made a typo and exposed the children to some rather interesting pictures. And they said, we're singing about that old wrinkly thing. So we definitely need to be a lot more tech savvy in our schools. And the fact that they are doing these extreme things demonstrates that they don't know what they're doing. It really does. They're not being creative. And the thing is neurodivergent people find that online interactions are safe, and it negates all the barriers to social communication. They can still be part of the community and they can still be facilitated. The moment you take all of that away, you take away their freedom to speak to people in a way that they feel the most comfortable with.
I just want to thank you, Amy, for that image.
I saw the realization of what she was talking about go across your face. Yeah, it was amazing. I will have to go back and watch the recording because that was quite funny. Okay, moving swiftly on from grandfather clocks. What you got next? Oh, Juliet, you could do this one.
Yes. So this comes from my, well, not quite my neck of the woods, but one of the neighbours of South Africa where I raised my children prior to moving here. So this family moved from the UK to Botswana, which is a country in Africa. Really interesting country and lots of wildlife, and she raised her children in the vicinity of the Okavango Delta. And it's a very interesting story because one of the things I noticed is that they did follow very much a structured sort of school approach. They set up a school sort of in their little encampment, because it seems like they had some kind of an encampment where they were studying and researching lions. But the children grew up in this environment, so alongside that sort of structured education, they were exposed to a lot of very educational experiences, that the kinds of experiences that you just don't get in school. And this mum tells a story of how well her children did. It wasn't her original plan to home educate, but they gave it a go and it worked really, really well. But they set it up more like a sort of formal school. But it's a very encouraging story. It's a nice story, and it might be a nice one to share with your children to kind of show how some other kids have grown up. And some of the experiences they've had. It might inspire you to do things a little differently for your family. And these children certainly had a wonderful experience and learned all about lions. They did, I think there was some mention of a book that they got to share their story, and it was made into a book. I just read it very briefly, so you can go and check out whether I've been honest and correct about that. But it's a good story, and I think it's nice to share with your children how, especially if your children feel like they don't know anyone else who's home educated, and they think that maybe others are telling them that if you're home educated you can't amount to anything. It's a good story for sharing a little bit about that, about how these children learned to drive as soon as they were old enough. They were able to learn to drive, and that kind of thing. So it's a very interesting story. And we will have the link available for you to go and read that for yourself, and maybe go and find out more about this particular family. What's next?
So that's our good news. Hey, we done, Kat?
Yes, Alison, is that all our stories for the evening? Okay, well, that's a nice positive one.
Stories for the evening.
We have got a question in the chat, which hasn't come on the main feed. I think it might just be on the CWS page, from Claire Emerson. Do you think taking the advisor and training jobs the DfE is advertising would be a good way to support the home ed community?
Yes, Michelle. Sorry, I think we've got a little bit of crossed wires here. I think that if people feel that they're able and they have these skills to bring to the table for those jobs, it certainly would be a very valuable way to serve the community and have influence over some very big decisions that will be made that will affect home educators in this country. I have had a look at the whole application process myself. It is quite stringent, so be warned. It's not for the faint-hearted, but do go and have a good look at the whole explanation. The closing date is 24th. Is that Tuesday? To Wednesday? Tuesday? What's it?
I think
24th is Wednesday. Wednesday.
What is it?
Yeah. But do go and have a good read through all the explanation about it, so that you can kind of understand. But I know that their numeral test and their verbal test are quite
badly written,
quite challenging.
They are badly written as well. Be aware that the numeracy test is not well written. I had a conversation with my daughter because she too had applied for a civil service job a while back, and I was talking to her about the numeracy test, and she just went, "Oh, they're so," she got an A star, by the way, I think, in her maths A level. So we're not talking about somebody that can't do maths. And she said they're so badly written. But get involved in there. Maybe you can change the numeracy test, and it makes sense. If that's the very least you do. Okay, folks. Well, have a lovely evening. We've gone to 37 minutes. I think that was not too bad. I try and keep it to about half an hour. When I'm doing it, it's you lose the will to live if it gets a bit longer than that. And we will be back with you next week, and hopefully we'll be able to make a full announcement about what's going to happen on the 18th of July. Not next week. We're not here next week.
No, taking a week off.
Oh, we've got a week off. I'm glad we said that. I'm glad I said that and got correct. Brilliant. Okay, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. And then we'll only be a couple of weeks out from the 18th of July. So keep an eye out for an announcement about the 18th of July.
Yeah, there will be posts on the Fix the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act page and on the action group about those events. So check those pages, check those groups, because the algorithms are not in our favor. So you need to go and look for them. Yeah.
They're not gonna notify you. Encourage people to donate to the crowdfunder. Pop another couple of quid in if you can into that, and go to one of these webinars next week. There you go. That's your homework for this week. Okay then. Nice to see you all, folks. Bye.
Night.